Hey, what are you doing out here? Why are you walking around these vehicles?
I'm looking at the cars. I just got here.
Step away from the vehicle now.
I'm not touching anything.
I said step away. Do you have ID on you?
For what reason?
Don't start with that. You don't look like you belong here just walking around like that.
Why is he grabbing him like that?
Turn around. Don't make this difficult.
I'm not resisting. You're grabbing me for no reason.
Officer, you think...
The moment Officer Travis Bellinger grabbed the man's arm in the open dealership lot, conversations stopped. People turned. Phones came out. Because what was happening didn't look like a normal police interaction. It was escalating fast. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because the next story is one you don't want to miss. Officer Travis R. Bellinger was 38 years old and had been with the Bellevue Police Department for just over 11 years. Within the department, he had built a reputation that wasn't officially documented in commendations, but was widely known among colleagues and some locals. He was quick to escalate, slow to listen, and had been the subject of multiple informal complaints, most of them centered around how he treated certain individuals during stops. None of those complaints had resulted in serious disciplinary action, but the pattern was there. People who had dealt with him before often described the same thing. Once he made up his mind about someone, he didn't back off. That afternoon, he wasn't responding to a violent crime or an emergency call. He had pulled into the open lot of Northcrest European Motors after a report of a suspicious individual walking around the vehicles. The description he received was vague, just a well-dressed black man moving between cars without a salesperson. By the time Bellinger stepped out of his patrol car, his attention was already fixed. About 30 feet away, moving calmly between two parked vehicles, was Kelechi Armand Okoye, 52 years old. He was dressed in a tailored navy suit, no tie, holding a phone in one hand as he paused beside a black Mercedes, taking a closer look at the interior through the window. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't acting nervous. If anything, he looked like someone taking his time before making a decision. Bellinger didn't approach like someone gathering information. He walked straight toward him, posture stiff, jaw tight, already speaking before he even closed the distance. "Hey, what are you doing out here?" Okoye turned slightly, caught off guard by the tone more than the question. "I'm looking at the cars," he said, calm, direct. Bellinger didn't slow down. He stepped into his space immediately. "Yeah, I can see that. I'm asking why you're walking around without checking in with anyone." "I just got here. I was about to head inside." That wasn't enough for Bellinger, not even close. "Step away from the vehicle," he said, sharper now. There was a pause, not defiance, just confusion. "I'm not touching anything," Okoye said. "I'm just..." "Step away from the vehicle," Bellinger repeated, louder this time, cutting him off. A few heads turned from across the lot. One of the sales associates, Ethan Varela, had been speaking with a couple near the entrance. He stopped mid-sentence, eyes shifting toward the raised voice. Okoye took a small step back, keeping his hands visible. "All right," he said, "there's no issue here." But Bellinger was already closing in again, his attention locked, scanning Okoye up and down in a way that didn't match the situation. "Do you have ID on you?" he asked. Okoye looked at him for a second. "For what reason?" That question seemed to flip something. "For my reason," Bellinger snapped. "You're being asked for identification. Let's not make this more complicated than it needs to be." The tone had changed. It wasn't a request anymore. Ethan had started walking closer now, slow, unsure whether to step in or stay back. Two other customers had stopped completely, watching. Okoye kept his voice even. "I haven't done anything wrong," he said. "I just arrived, and I'm looking to purchase a vehicle." Bellinger gave a short, dismissive laugh. "Yeah, that's what you're doing?" There was something in the way he said it, skeptical, almost mocking. Okoye didn't respond to that. He held his position. "I'm asking again," Bellinger said, stepping even closer. "Do you have ID?" "And I'm asking," Okoye replied, still controlled, "what exactly are you detaining me for?" That word, detaining, shifted the energy. Bellinger's expression hardened instantly. "Don't start with that," he said. "You're not in a position to question anything right now." Before Okoye could respond, Bellinger reached out and grabbed his arm again, firmer this time. "Hey, don't do that," Okoye said, pulling slightly, not aggressively, just enough to create space. "Stop resisting," Bellinger snapped immediately. "I'm not resisting," Okoye said. "You're grabbing me for no reason." That exchange drew more attention. A couple near a white BMW had already taken out their phones. You could hear one of them quietly say, "Why is he grabbing him like that?" Ethan finally stepped closer, cautious. "Officer, is everything all right here?" he asked. Bellinger didn't even look at him. "Stay out of it," he said flatly. Then back to Okoye. "Last chance. ID. Now." There was a brief silence. Okoye looked at him, steady, measuring. "You're making a mistake," he said. That didn't land the way it should have. Instead, Bellinger tightened his grip. "No," he said, low and controlled. "You made the mistake the moment you started wandering around here acting like you belong." That line hung in the air. It was quiet, but it was clear. Ethan froze. The couple recording didn't say anything this time. Okoye's expression didn't change much, but something shifted. Not fear, not anger, just a decision. "I'm not reaching for anything while you're holding me like this," he said. "Then you should have thought about that earlier," Bellinger replied. With his free hand, the officer moved toward his radio, speaking quickly, eyes still locked on Okoye. "Unit requesting backup, possible trespassing, non-compliant individual." Non-compliant. The word didn't match what anyone was seeing. Okoye let out a slow breath, then spoke again, still controlled. "You're escalating this without cause." Bellinger didn't respond. He adjusted his stance, positioning himself like he was preparing for the next step. And then his hand dropped, right toward his handcuffs. That was the moment the tension in the lot shifted completely, because this was no longer a conversation. And just as the metal cuffs came into view, Okoye said something, quiet, direct, that made Ethan stop moving entirely. "Officer, you need to think very carefully about what you're doing next." Bellinger didn't pause. He moved forward anyway. He stepped in closer, the handcuffs now fully visible in his hand, his grip still locked on Okoye's arm. "Turn around," he ordered. Okoye didn't move. "I'm not resisting you," he said, steady, "but you're not putting me in cuffs without cause." That was enough. Bellinger's expression tightened, and without warning, he shoved Okoye forward, trying to force him off balance. "I said turn around," he snapped, louder now. The movement drew a reaction from everyone watching. A woman near the front row of cars let out a quiet, "Hey," but didn't finish. Ethan had stopped completely, standing just a few feet away now, clearly unsure if stepping in would make things worse. Okoye caught himself, regaining his footing. "This is unnecessary," he said. "You're escalating." "Stop talking," Bellinger cut in. "You don't give instructions here." His voice carried across the open lot. More people had turned now. A couple of customers who had been near the showroom doors had stepped outside. Phones were no longer subtle. At least 3 were clearly raised. Okoye kept his hands visible, slightly out to his sides. "I'm not a threat to you," he said. "There's no reason for this level of force." Bellinger shook his head, almost like he was dismissing the entire statement. "You match the description. Walking around vehicles, not checking in, refusing to cooperate. That's enough." "That's not enough," Okoye replied immediately, "and you know that." That back and forth seemed to irritate Bellinger more than anything else. "You don't get to tell me what's enough," he said, stepping in again. "Turn around." Instead, Okoye asked again, calm but firm, "What am I being detained for?" That question hung there for half a second. Then Bellinger grabbed him again, this time harder, pulling his arm behind his back. "Stop resisting," he shouted. "I am not resisting," Okoye said, his voice tightening slightly now, more from the physical pressure than anything else. "You're twisting my arm." From behind them, Ethan spoke again, more cautiously this time. "Officer, he hasn't done anything. He just got here. I saw him." "I said stay out of it," Bellinger snapped, not even turning around. Ethan stopped talking immediately. The situation was clearly past the point where anyone felt comfortable stepping in. Okoye adjusted his stance slightly to relieve the pressure on his shoulder. "You're making a scene for no reason. People are watching you." "Good, let them watch." There was no hesitation in that response. It wasn't about resolving anything anymore. It was about control. One of the customers recording spoke quietly to someone next to him. "He didn't even do anything." Another voice responded lower. "This doesn't look right at all." Bellinger ignored all of it. "Last time," he said, tightening his grip again. "Are you going to comply, or are you going to make this worse for yourself?" Okoye took a breath. "I'm not refusing to comply. I'm asking you to explain your actions, which you haven't done." "That's not your call," Bellinger shot back. Then, without warning, he pushed Okoye forward again, harder this time, trying to force his other arm behind his back. Okoye resisted just enough to stay balanced. "Stop," he said, sharper now. "You're crossing a line." That was the first time his tone had shifted. Not raised, not emotional, just firmer. Bellinger didn't like that. "You think you're in control here?" he said. "You're not. You're being detained." "For what?" Okoye asked immediately. Bellinger didn't answer. Instead, he adjusted his stance again and tried to pull Okoye's second arm back. The movement was rough, uncoordinated, more force than necessary. Okoye winced slightly, his jaw tightening. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're using force without justification. You keep talking like that, and this is going to go a lot worse for you." That line didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like a decision already made. There was a shift in the crowd again. The tension wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was discomfort. Even people who hadn't been paying attention at first were now fully focused. Ethan took a small step back, glancing toward the showroom, clearly considering whether to get a manager. Meanwhile, Okoye remained steady, even with his arms still being held. "You're not listening," he said. "You've already decided what this is." "Yeah, I have." There it was. No attempt to hide it, no attempt to de-escalate, just confirmation. Okoye looked at him for a second, then said quietly, "You approached me already assuming something. That's the problem." Bellinger let out a short breath through his nose. "No, the problem is you not following instructions." Before Okoye could respond, the sound of another patrol car pulling into the lot cut through the moment. Backup. Bellinger didn't look away, but his posture shifted slightly, more confident now. "You should have just done what you were told." Okoye didn't react to that. Instead, he spoke clearly, enough for both Bellinger and the approaching officers to hear. "I want it on record that I have not resisted at any point." That statement landed differently. It wasn't emotional, it was intentional. Bellinger's grip tightened again, like he was trying to reassert control before the situation changed, but it already was. Two additional officers stepped out of the second patrol car, scanning the scene quickly. The crowd, the phones, Bellinger holding Okoye in place. One of them slowed slightly, taking in the details, because from a distance alone, something already didn't look right. And as they got closer, Okoye shifted his attention briefly toward them, still calm, still controlled. Then he said something that made one of the approaching officers noticeably hesitate mid-step. "Officers, I suggest you assess this situation very carefully before getting involved." The two responding officers slowed as they approached, their attention moving between Bellinger's grip on Okoye and the growing number of people recording. One of them, a younger officer, glanced briefly at the phones, then back at Okoye's posture, hands visible, no acted resistance, controlled tone. It didn't match the non-compliant call that had just come over the radio. "What's going on?" he asked, looking directly at Bellinger. "Suspect was trespassing, refused ID, became non-compliant," Bellinger said quickly, not loosening his hold. "I'm placing him in cuffs." "That's not accurate," Okoye said immediately, still calm. "I asked for a reason. I was given none." Bellinger tightened his grip slightly, like he was trying to shut that down without words. "I've got it handled," he added, sharper this time. But the second officer wasn't fully convinced. His eyes moved again. Okoye's suit, the lack of agitation, the way the crowd was reacting. None of it lined up with what Bellinger was describing. "Sir," the second officer said, directing it to Okoye, "have you been asked to leave the property?" "No, I just arrived. I was looking at vehicles." "That's not the issue," Bellinger cut in. "He's refusing to identify himself." "I didn't refuse. I asked for the legal basis." That distinction hung there. One of the customers recording spoke under their breath again, but loud enough to carry. He literally didn't do anything. The younger officer exhaled slightly, then looked back at Bellinger. "Did the dealership ask him to leave?" "No," Ethan said before he could stop himself. "He's a customer." Bellinger shot him a quick look, sharp, warning, but Ethan didn't say anything else. That changed the dynamic again, because now there was a direct contradiction. Bellinger's jaw tightened. "He's interfering with an investigation. That's enough," Okoye responded immediately. "Standing in a public access lot is not interference." The second officer shifted his weight slightly, clearly processing. "All right, let's just slow this down for a second." But Bellinger didn't slow down. He repositioned his grip again and started pulling Okoye's second arm back, trying to complete the cuffing. "Turn around," he repeated. Okoye didn't resist, but he didn't assist either. "I'm not going to move while you're using force without explanation." That's when the tension peaked, because Bellinger made a decision. He stopped trying to guide the movement and instead forced it. He pushed Okoye forward again, harder than before, attempting to bring him off balance enough to secure both wrists. A few people in the crowd reacted audibly this time. "Hey, that's too much!" Phones stayed up. No one left. Okoye caught himself again, breathing controlled, but the strain was visible now. "This is unnecessary," he said louder than before. "You're escalating without cause." "Stop resisting," Bellinger snapped again, even though there was no active resistance, just refusal to be forced. That word, resisting, was now being said for the third time, and it still didn't match what anyone was seeing. The second officer stepped in slightly closer now. "Bellinger, hold on," he said, but it was already moving too fast. "Turn around," Bellinger barked again. Then, suddenly, "Officer." The word cut through everything. It wasn't loud, but it carried. Bellinger paused for just half a second, not fully stopping, but enough. Okoye spoke again, clearer this time. "You need to stop." There was no panic in his voice, no anger, just authority. That pause created a gap, and in that gap, everything shifted. Because Okoye slowly moved his free hand, not quickly, not in a way that could be mistaken, toward the inside pocket of his jacket. Bellinger reacted immediately. "Don't reach," he snapped, his grip tightening again. "I'm informing you before I do anything," Okoye said, steady. "I'm retrieving identification." "You should have done that earlier," Bellinger said, but his tone changed slightly. Not calm, just less certain. The second officer raised a hand slightly. "Let him show it." There was a brief hesitation. Then Bellinger loosened his grip just enough. "Slowly," he said. Okoye nodded once, then reached into his jacket and pulled out a leather holder. He opened it. For a moment, no one spoke. The second officer leaned slightly to get a clearer view. His eyes focused. Then his posture changed. Not dramatically, but enough. He straightened a bit, looked again, then looked at Okoye's face, then back at the ID. "Sir," he said, quieter now. Bellinger didn't catch it immediately. "What?" he asked. The second officer didn't answer right away. Instead, he stepped closer, lowering his voice slightly, but not enough to be completely unheard. "You might want to take a look at that." Bellinger glanced down, irritated more than anything else, but when he saw it, he stopped. Not gradually, completely. His grip loosened without him seeming to realize it. The tension in his shoulders shifted, because now, for the first time since he stepped into that lot, he was unsure. The younger officer looked between both of them, then back at the ID. "Is that—" he started, not finishing the sentence. The second officer gave a slight nod. Okoye closed the holder calmly. "I tried to tell you," he said. There was no satisfaction in it, just fact. Bellinger took a small step back, not enough to fully disengage, but enough that it was noticeable. The crowd picked up on it immediately. You could hear the shift, quiet murmurs, movement, phones adjusting, because something had just changed, and everyone could feel it. But it wasn't over, not even close, because from the far end of the lot, another vehicle had just pulled in, moving faster than the others had. And as it came to a stop, someone stepped out. Older, more composed, already scanning the scene. Sergeant Nolan Pierce. And the moment he took in what was happening, his expression changed. Sergeant Nolan Pierce didn't rush. He stepped out of his vehicle, closed the door, and stood still for a second, just observing. His eyes moved across the lot in a slow sweep. The crowd, the phones, Bellinger standing a few feet back now, Okoye upright, composed, jacket slightly shifted from where he'd been grabbed. Pierce had been on the job for over 20 years. He didn't need anyone to explain when something was off. He started walking forward. "What's going on?" he asked, voice level, controlled. No one answered immediately. Bellinger opened his mouth first. "Possible trespassing? Non-compliant?" Pierce raised a hand slightly, cutting him off without even looking at him. "I'll ask you in a second," he said. His attention shifted directly to Okoye. "Sir, are you all right?" "I am, but I'd like it noted that I was physically restrained without cause." Pierce gave a small nod. "I understand." That was all he said, but it was enough to signal something had already shifted. He turned slightly, now facing Bellinger. "Start from the beginning," Pierce said. Bellinger straightened a bit, trying to reset. "I got a call about a suspicious individual walking the lot. He matched the description. I approached. He refused to provide ID, became non-compliant." "That's not accurate," the second officer said, before he could stop himself. There was a brief silence. Pierce's eyes moved to him. "Go ahead," Pierce said. The second officer spoke carefully. He asked for the reason for the stop. He didn't refuse outright, and the dealership didn't ask him to leave. Pierce nodded once. Then he looked at Ethan. "You work here?" "Yes, sir," Ethan said quickly. "Did you call this in?" "No, I didn't, and he's right. The man just got here. He was looking at cars." Pierce took that in without reacting. Then his attention returned to Bellinger. "Did you verify the complaint before making contact?" He hesitated just for a second. "It matched what I was told," he said. "That's not what I asked," Pierce replied. Another pause. "No," Bellinger said. The air shifted again. Pierce let that sit for a moment, then spoke, calm, but firmer now. "And at what point did this require physical force?" Bellinger didn't answer immediately. "He wasn't complying," he said finally. Pierce looked past him, toward the crowd, then back again. "Doesn't look like resistance to me." That landed harder than anything else so far. Bellinger's posture tightened. "He questioned my authority," he said. Pierce didn't respond right away. Instead, he turned back to Okoye. "Sir, may I see your identification?" Okoye handed it over without hesitation. Pierce opened it, looked at it, then looked up. There was no visible reaction, but the respect in his posture was immediate. He closed it and handed it back carefully. "Thank you, Your Honor." That was the first time the title had been said out loud, and it carried. The crowd reacted almost instantly. Quiet voices, movement, phones shifting again. Did he just say judge? Oh, wow. Bellinger didn't move, but his expression changed. Not confusion this time, recognition, and with it, realization. Pierce turned back to him. "Do you understand who you made contact with?" He swallowed slightly. "Yes, sir." Pierce nodded once. "Then you understand the seriousness of what just happened?" No response, because there wasn't one. Pierce stepped a little closer, lowering his voice, but not enough to make it private. "Unverified call, no probable cause, immediate escalation, physical force in a public setting." Each point landed one after the other. "And multiple witnesses," he added, glancing briefly at the phone still raised. Bellinger looked past him for a second, seeing it clearly now. There was no controlling this anymore. Pierce straightened slightly. "Effective immediately, you're stepping out of this scene." Bellinger hesitated. "Sergeant, That's not a suggestion," Pierce cut in. A beat. Then Bellinger stepped back, not arguing, not pushing, just stepping out. The shift was complete. Pierce turned back to Okoye. "Sir, I want to apologize for how this was handled. This should not have escalated the way it did." Okoye adjusted his jacket slightly, then looked at him. "I remained calm the entire time. That didn't seem to matter." Pierce nodded. "I can see that." There was a pause. Then Okoye added "This isn't just about me. This is about how quickly assumptions turned into action." Pierce didn't interrupt, because there was nothing to argue there. "You're right," he said. Behind them, one of the officers had started quietly directing the crowd back, but most people were still watching. The moment had already spread beyond the lot. Pierce turned slightly toward the second officer. "Make sure everything here is documented. Full report." "Yes, sir." Then back to Bellinger. "Remain available. Don't leave." Bellinger nodded once. No resistance left. Just silence. Okoye looked around briefly. The cars, the people, the phones still pointed. Then back at Pierce. "I came here to purchase a vehicle. That was it." Pierce gave a small, acknowledging nod. "I understand." There was another pause. Then Okoye spoke one last time, calm, direct, and clear enough for those closest to hear. "Authority doesn't give you the right to decide who belongs in a space." No one interrupted, because everyone had just watched what happens when someone does. Pierce exhaled quietly, then said, "We'll handle this appropriately." And judging by everything already set in motion, that wasn't just a statement, it was the beginning of consequences. What would you have done in that situation? Comment below, and don't forget to subscribe.